This is so interesting.
We got Mark.
Hi, Mark.
Yeah, the
Hi,
live
everyone.
stream is doing something with the.
Yeah, this
All
is
right.
so interesting. Restream and LinkedIn have a new connection. There we go. It looks like we're live over there. That's good. And it looks like we're finally
Nice.
live on YouTube. So this is technology, so fun. Well, good.
Woohoo!
So
Isn't it fun?
yeah. Well, good to have you here. We was it last week, Brandon, or 2 weeks ago now? 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, we had our first ever
That
workshop.
we. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And we had 24 out of the 25 registrants show up, so that was fantastic. The one person who didn't show up was having connection issues, so we would have had a complete full house. So there's a lot of great things that happened, and we're going to be having another one on December 8th. So if you're interested in that, let me know. Sellanythingwithvideoworkshop.com is where you can sign up for the waiting list. We already have 10 out of 15 slots filled for that. So, love to have you get on the waiting list and show up next time. So today there's a couple things that we wanted to share. I know some people had emailed me saying, "Hey, they can't make it today. That's great. We're recording this," or they're catching it on another platform. So three things we wanted to cover today, and would love to have a little discussion with you guys in regards to some things we're learning. The first thing is I'm gonna share a 1 minute clip from one of the workshop registrants. I think Kelly and Mark might know Vlad, but I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here, and I'm gonna pull this up, and I'm going to. Cool, everyone. It looks like it's showing. Great. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and play this, and then we're gonna talk about this. So the title is "Video is Forgiving."
If anything, I will tell you something really cool. That there's something that you said in the workshop that had so much color compared to everything else. Is that the video is forgiving,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
and
Tell me
I
more.
came in completely with the belief, with the contextual belief that video is actually where you can't mess up, where you have
Hmm.
to do the, we come to these things from public speaking or from whatever
Yeah.
thing where you from this spotlight where everything that's imperfect gets magnified.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you expect the same thing for video. And when you said that, I was like, holy shit, I just like a big thing lifted in me. So, like I could, like it went from like, I could totally do this.
All right. So this was a follow-up call with Vlad, and this was something that I don't think Brandon and I really expected to be a point of emphasis. And it's always interesting to see what people pick up when you do a presentation. So this whole concept of video is forgiving. Um, Brandon, I'd love to hear a little bit from you about kind of that, because this is something that you talk about quite often when you're sitting in front of a subject or a client. Talk a little bit about what you mean by video is forgiving.
Sure. Bob, raise your hand if you can hear me.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, good. So yeah, so you know, I contest that 80% of the work I do working with clients is really just getting them out of their head. It's really getting you past all these fears and preconceived ideas of what video is supposed to look like when it's produced. Again, I go back to our training when we look at that. We watch the news, we watch actors. We think that's what people resonate with, and actually, no, it's not. People generally don't trust the news. They call them talking heads. We make fun of them. We know they act like puppets, and actors we know are paid to convince us that what the character they have created out of thin air is actually fact absolutely false. And that tenet is proved over and over again by YouTube. and every video upload service that there is, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, when people create videos, what gets shared is something funny or interesting or inspiring. It has, and it's most of the stuff is shot on the phone, with bad lighting and messy hair. But what people are looking for is a human resonance. And so this isn't throwing the baby out with the bathwater in the sense of we want to have a standard of production quality, but it's not the thing that's going to make a video pitching or persuasive.
Yeah, and I think what Vlad was really stressing, is that this is video is different than a live talk. So in a live talk, you're performing, and there's no like second takes, right? I mean, you can certainly like stumble over words, and your delivery can be awkward, but it makes for a really like poor presentation. So when you're preparing to do a live talk, a live session, like you're performing, and you really got to be on. And one of the things that's great about video is that you can take a second take, right? I mean, we
Yeah.
rarely have any clients that go through and like nail it on one take. It just doesn't happen. And what it comes down to is that you can say something and go, "Oh, it doesn't sound quite right," and you could say it a different way. Or better yet, you have a director that's sitting across from you and going, "You know what? That didn't come out quite right. Could you say it a different way?" Or you didn't go deep enough. Like let's expound on that. You can't do that in a live presentation. It's a much different
Mm-hmm.
environment, right? Like you have a script, you have slides, and you have a time allotment, and there's a lot of pressure, and you have to really prepare for that. And so one of the things that we always say with our clients is like, we want you coming in prepared. We have a plan, but we don't do scripts, and you're not really expected to perform. And when you're in the mode of like, I don't have to perform, I just have to be who I am, I think it takes a lot of pressure off the subjects. Kelly, you do quite a bit of video still, right? Tell us a little bit about some of your experiences with that.
Well, a little bit, yeah. I mean, I totally agree with you guys that the whole like landscape, like the universe in terms of people's perception is shifted, and it's so interesting to think about what all the like layers of that are. But I think one of them is just simple that we've all gotten used to, because the quantity of like casually done video as opposed to the old days where everything had to be super highly produced, right? There's just so much more content that doesn't necessarily have, get created in the same way, that people have just gotten used to that, seasoned to it, right? So even all of us, like looking at Vlad's conversation with you guys, just the feedback of that, like you guys know he's not framed correctly, right? But like nobody cares. Like we all
Oh,
got in, we
yeah,
realize like, yeah, it's Vlad and he's talking about something real. And so you don't judge that the same way you would have, pop 40 years back. If you'd seen that on TV, which, this isn't a TV program, it was just him having a conversation with you guys. But like, if you'd seen that on TV 40 years ago, you would have just known like, wait, something's wrong, right?
yeah,
And I don't think anybody has that response anymore. So I think there's lots of layers to it. It's super interesting, and it's totally advantageous, as you guys say, but letting people like, relax and relieve themselves of all that unnecessary pressure about assuming what they do has to be perfect or polished.
cool. Todd, welcome to the call. You had a chance to do
Hey,
some
Todd.
video. You had a chance to do some video with us. I love to hear the whole like,
Todd,
is video forgiving?
come on,
Not
Todd.
not the
Say nice
image
things.
part. I told these guys I have a face for radio. So,
Todd is a lot of fun to work with. He is a very sharp wit and sense of humor, dry sense of humor, and as the world moves a little too slow for him, so he's a brilliant guy, and we had a lot of fun on our shoot.
I'd love to hear your thoughts, Todd, in regards to like, I know you do sales presentations, you've done other presentations. How is video different in terms of that? Did that resonate with you? Like video is forgiving, versus when you were on?
um, I think the process is probably more forgiving, right? So to your point about a script, if you sit down, Brandon would ask me to say something and I couldn't remember it 30 seconds later, let alone a whole script. But but I think the process is what's forgiving. So you sit down, you answer the questions, um, which is more natural, right? And it sort of follows the how to write a book in 2 weeks, right? Like you create a list of questions and you answer the questions, and that sort of creates the book. So I think that process does that.
Yeah.
So
Well, we have come, doing hundreds and hundreds of shoots over the past few years. We've come to the conclusion that if you have any sort of ability to talk about your business, and the fact that you're in business and are still generating sales means you have some ability to talk about your business. You certainly have the ability to get on camera to talk about it. It's just that it's just a little bit of different environment than a phone call or a Zoom call, these days. So, your ability to talk about what you do and how you solve people's problems is paramount. And that leads to our kind of our second point is there's really we've distilled it down to two things. When we are speaking with a potential client, there are two things that Brandon and I are looking for. Now, yeah, we're having a sales consultation, but in reality, what we're doing is we're trying to qualify them and we're trying to disqualify them. There's two things that we need to hear and see in a client. The first is confidence. Um, Confidence is something that comes across, and it there's physical confidence in terms of their stature, their presence. And then there's confidence in like being able to talk and describe what they do. Brandon, talk about some of the signs that you're looking for as you interview somebody. What are some of the signs in terms of confidence that you're listening for as you talk with them?
It's usually, it's a change in their body language. It's a change in their demeanor. I usually try and start with getting to the core of why they're in the business that they're in. What is the backstory? What is the aha moment that said this is a business this is a problem I can solve. This is a business I should get into. It's usually affirmed by an outside source. Usually, you see the effect you solving a problem can have on the world, on a customer. And you're like, this is very affirming. We did a good job. So it starts with kind of framing them up to help them realize that this is really about the client's or the customer's story and not about them personally. So have them tell the story of how they got in the business. I'll also ask them, what was the aha moment that made you convinced this was right? And usually that has to do with someone they helped. So now they're thinking about someone they've helped instead of themselves. Now they're thinking about, wow, they flood their mind with all the good vibes they've gotten from past customers. And they start getting out of their own way. They start thinking about, wow, we really do have a service. And then I get them remembering what people have said about their business, testimonials. And that additionally just builds their confidence back up. So in that little exercise that we do, it gets them past this idea that they have to be ultra polished, which they don't. So that's where we begin to kind of check for confidence, give them confidence. And once we're kind of in that mode of them remembering of who they've helped, it's really easy to continue and get them talking about their business in an intelligent way that resonates.
So it's not necessarily like a confidence like I could perform on camera. That's something that we could help build, and it's something that you could get experience doing just the more you do it. When we did the workshop, there's three opportunities for the people to practice. We had them do a video before they showed up. They did a video while they were in the session, and then they did a video after the session. So they had three
Mm-hmm.
opportunities to practice. And what we saw, they submitted these videos. What we saw was a growth in terms of their confidence. Like they were maybe thinking about a script a little bit, but then they were able to simplify, edit, and get it down to a much more succinct thing. The other thing we did is we put a clock on them, and when we put the clock on them, we said 1 minute. And that really forced people. It was like really uncomfortable. Was to like, hey, I need to tell a story inside of 1 minute. And it was really like jarring for people when I would be like, time's up, right? Um, and so, what we were trying to do is put people in a situation where we stretch them. And what we do, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to build up the confidence in what they're talking about. All right. And it's not like, oh, I get fearful when the camera turns on. Like everybody will still get fearful or nervous when the camera's on. But what we want them to be confident about is what they're talking about. And one of the secrets we found is if we can get them stop thinking about themselves, start thinking about who they serve, when they talk about the people they serve, it really melts them, and they get out of their head and they're immediately thinking about somebody else. And so that's how that confidence comes through. So we are
Hmm.
looking for people that have actually done service. We rarely work with startups because in that situation they don't have stories to tell, and so they don't have a ton of confidence because they haven't really done it yet. So one of the things that we're looking for is a road or a track record of helping people, because we know that we can turn that track record into good video. And that leads to the second thing that we found, and that's clarity. Clarity is really,
Mm.
really powerful. I'm going to tell a story about a client that didn't work for us. And in fact, we had 3 video shoots with this individual. And we essentially asked the same questions, and the answers came out the same way. But that person was starting something new and didn't have a ton of clarity around what they were actually trying to do. And so, Brandon and I thought it was a really good opportunity. It was a nice check for us. But
Hmm.
what in the end was is that this individual did not have a tremendous amount of clarity about what they were going to deliver. And so what ended up happening was, even though the video turned out great, when they watched it back, they didn't like what they saw because they didn't like what they were talking about. It was the content that was
Hmm.
tripping them up. Talk a little bit about that, Brandon.
Yeah, that was it's frustrating because we absolutely love our clients. We love working with people. We want to help. But literally, we did 3 video shoots and asked the same questions. And this person spent a lot of money actually on a voice coach and confidence coach. And the third video shoot, he came in ready to go. And then we edited, and there was very, very, very minuscule, almost imperceivable difference between the videos we shot first and the videos that we shot third. So that was kind of something for Bob and I wanting to add an exercise to our process in feed stories is we really need to make sure, a subject can talk confidently and thoroughly about their company, and there's always going to be room for working on that, and we love doing that. You come in with 80-90% clarity, we love taking you to the next 10 to 20%. Absolutely. But I would say with this client, he came in at maybe 40% clarity, 50% clarity, and no matter what we did or how much we worked with him, it really didn't matter. He was not confident in what he was selling. And so that was just a big lesson learned.
Yeah.
um, and usually, and that's why Bob makes the comment about startups is, startups are new and exciting, and there's some we could consider, but it's like a lot of this is really capturing what most business owners have repeated 100 times in front of a potential prospect. It's already a rehearsed script. You've just never really written it down. This is something that automatically you go into when you are talking to a potential prospect. It's automatic. All we do is capture it on film, and we structure it in a way that resonates.
So a couple things that would be useful for all of you is if you do sales consultations and you do them on Zoom, you've got recordings. So you could go back and actually hear how you talked about things, because quite often you'll be on a call, you don't really remember what you said, right? If you're in the zone, like you don't really remember, but you could play back questions people have. You could play back answers you gave to those questions. That's all good content for you. And especially on a sales call, what you're listening for is, what do I keep saying over and over, right? What resonates with people? Like, watch how when you say something, like watch how they react to it. And that's something, okay, that that is, I'm really clear on that, and they understood that. That was something that resonated with them. So, it's really difficult to watch yourself back on video. Like, nobody loves to do it. But if you're
Yes.
really trying to develop confidence and clarity, that's one way to research. Is we have a tool now that allows you to do that, and it's not going to freak people out. You're not recording a phone call for training purposes, like every time you call in. This is just, hey, I watched myself perform on Zoom, and I'm listening for cues. The other thing you're looking for is, what are the objections? What are the questions people are asking? Is there something that keeps coming up? Those are things that make for great video content, especially if you're putting together a sales video, FAQ videos. Those types of things are what you want to automate. So, when we sit down with somebody, we're searching for those things. We're asking, what questions do you get asked over and over? What are the common objections people have? And it's really useful to have lists of those things and to have outlines. It's why we put them into the shot plan, is we want to make sure that you talk about those. And it's really useful for you to think about it beforehand. So, if you go in to do a video and you have this FAQ, again, we don't want you scripting that out, but we want you thinking about what's the right answer. You know, Brandon and I don't sit down to do videos for our business without thinking, like, what do we really want to get across here? And so, we are thinking about, what are people going to be asking? What are the common things that might come up, common objections, and we're just making lists of those things. So, even as we, put an agenda together for this call, is like, okay, what's risen to the top this month that we really want to cover? And, this is just something that came up, as like, oh, you know, the fact that we never really put a lot of emphasis on the fact that video is forgiving, and yet here's somebody who was like, of the 3 hour workshop, this was the one thing that gave him the most satisfaction, was, who, I don't have to perform when the camera turns on, right? And that's not something Brandon and I really thought about too much. Brandon talks about it and he says it,
Hmm.
once in a while, but it wasn't something that was like, oh, that's one of our main things. But it will be now, because we know how much of an impact it is for people. And so those are the types of things you just want to keep in a journal and an outline, Google Doc, whatever. That's key stuff when you sit down to do video. Um,
Give you another little trick, Bob. I think that's something that you and I have started to do is when you are in front of a client, a prospect, and let's say you're having that conversation. You're on the elevator, you're at the bar, coffee shop, wherever that might be. Um, Keep a notepad next to you. And when you're on the spot and you are talking to someone about the problem you solve, things are going to come out of your face that are useful.
your mouth hole.
And your mouth hole, your face hole, you're going to have useful things come out, because you can't help yourself. You are on the spot. You have to deliver. You have to talk intelligently about your business right now. And you would be amazed at some of the tidbits that come out of your mouth. And this is where you get to stroke your ego a little bit and say, because if you do this enough, like Bob and I are generally on some type of a call every week with a prospect. And so, we kind of know what the other is going to be emphasizing, or whatever, what we both do. But what also happens is we'll debrief after the call. Man, what you said there was key, was really important. And then he'll pat my bald head and say, you know what, you're a genius when you said that. And what you do is you take down those little notes and you add it to the language around your sales process. Because you realize you'll start to build, because you'll start to hear words that people resonate with when you're having conversations with them. One of the biggest things, I'll hush now, but I was at an event a couple weeks ago, where a bunch of other entrepreneurs, it was kind of like a, mastermind event. And I was talking about what we do, and what I kept coming out of my face hole was the word video as an amplifier. And that was new for me. And oh, and just like Perry and others talk about the USP, that was a word that we're going to continue to use in our marketing because people resonate with it. It immediately frames, oh, that's what video can do for me. That's what it can do for me online. We're not framing it as marketing and sales, which we kind of had in the past. We're starting to upgrade that language, and it really, really helps. And it got us a couple clients from that event.
Absolutely. So Brent, I'm gonna play another video here.
Okay.
What we talked about quite extensively in the workshop was the power of story. And one of the shortcuts that we've been sharing here is tell a story about one of your clients. So Brandon and I are part of a project called findmywayhome.com. We're partners with Josh Lewis, Scott Shang, and Mark Ingalls in this business. And what we're doing with that is we are helping connect people to sources to get loans for homes. The base problem in the industry is that about 8% of people that fill out forms online actually get a mortgage. So if you go to Rocket Mortgage, fill out a form, that's about a 2% conversion rate, maybe 2% more on the back end. So it's even worse than the industry norm, which means there's 90+% of people who are out there trying to get a home that can't get connected with financing. And it's not always something that is obvious. And so what we're doing with this project is we are educating consumers. We want them to be connected to information about, hey, if you're like an entrepreneur and don't have a steady paycheck, right? You don't have pay stubs that go back 2 years. You're a veteran and you have veterans benefits and different things. If you have student loans, if you have challenging credit, not poor credit, we're not in that business, but if you have nicks on your credit report, there are ways to get that fixed up and then be able to qualify. And so that's what we're about. And we have a network of experts. We're going to be growing this network over the next 3 years. We've got experts who really want to help these people. They're specialists. These are people that can take difficult situations. And so part of our value proposition for these experts being part of our network is they work with somebody on the Feedstories team every month to develop content. And none of them are really good performers. None of them would come out and say, yeah, I'm great on video. But what they're good at is they're good at helping people and they have really good hearts. They're confident and they're clear about what they do. And those are the things we look for before we even put them in the network. Because what we do is we introduce them to consumers. We don't do lead generation. We don't sell leads. We make introductions to experts and we invite them into a conversation. So I want to share a video of one of our experts that I thought was really good from the standpoint of using a story to help brag about his ability and his team's ability to help somebody. So I want to go ahead and play that right now for y'all.
Hi, this is David Zai, and I'm going to tell you about a client success story that I had a couple years ago. He's now a dear friend of mine, Noah, come into my office, and I remember the agent that referred him to me basically said, hey, I met this guy at an open house, really nice veteran, very well deserving of a bigger house. His family size has increased, he's remarried, and I remember to this day because I was able to put him into a house when others could not. He actually only qualified for a $100,000 house, and he was looking for a $500,000 house right here in sunny Virginia Beach. And when he came into the office, he said, David, I really don't think you can do anything for me, but my overall goal is to be able to get into this house, keep my rental property, and eventually be able to have a rental portfolio. So I sat down with him, had a client consultation, and my typical client consultations last about 30 minutes. And this one actually took about 2 hours. And I remember just seeing the desire in his eyes to be a homeowner and, get his family into this house. However, one of the things that that I'm really good at based on the years of experience and putting loans together is I'm really good at numbers. And, you know, when someone says I can't do something, I'm going to try even harder. I was able to look at all the numbers and, you know, put it together when all the other banks said they wouldn't work. The mortgage company said it wouldn't work. I was able to, you know, have him move some debts around, pay some things off, and just know the guidelines to the VA to make it all work and come together, because ultimately my goal was to put him into that house. And he's come back to me and referred friends and family to me. Not only do I consider him a valued customer and a client for life, but it is definitely an honor to be his friend as well. If you've liked what you've seen so far, please feel free to reach out to us 7 days a week so we can help you with your financing goals.
Cool. So I'd love to hear from you all. What do you know about David Zai after watching a 2-minute video?
He
Unmute.
works 7 days a week.
Okay. What else?
Leads with his heart. He cares.
Interesting. Cool. Kelly, what were you going to say?
He cares was the 2 words in my head.
Okay. What details were in that video that were useful to you?
The numbers were
Mhm.
eye-popping, right?
Okay.
100,000 to 500. It's like, oh, wait, what? Right? That's a pretty extreme case study. Yeah.
All right, that's a good detail. What type of client was he helping? He's a veteran,
Mhm.
right? So automatically now, okay, so there's a couple things that come up here. Number one is like, hey, I help veterans. So immediately, if you were a veteran, you were watching this video going, oh my goodness, here's somebody that can actually help a veteran. Because veterans, whether you know it or not, get turned down all the time for loans because most mortgage companies do not want to deal with the VA and all the things around that. The other thing you learned about this person is they have some debts. Now, rare is it in this part of the country at this part of the at this time in the world where somebody has no debts, right? But part of the reason that so many people get kicked out of the system is because they have some credit issues, they have debts, and mortgage companies like I don't want to deal with that. They're just trying to scrape the cream off the top. So here is if you are watching this and you're a veteran, you have debts, and you are driven. You know, the other thing is that he framed this example, and this obviously it's a real example, but this is a person who is driven. Like they're driven to get their family into this house. It wasn't like, hey, I want to get this really nice house. It's like, no, it was for his family. He's gotten remarried, he's starting his life here, and he wanted to move them to this place. He didn't want to settle. So he's actually projecting like, hey, if you're willing to work, right? If you're willing to work, I can work with you. So it's setting that up. And then the other thing that I thought brought a lot of confidence was, hey, I'm good at numbers. Like you want somebody that is good at doing this thing. Like most people aren't necessarily good at numbers, or at least those types of numbers. So there was a lot of detail in that story that really set that up to be like, oh my goodness, like if I'm in that category, like I want to hire David, right? Like if I'm in the Virginia area, like why would you go anywhere else, right? Brandon, what were some of the things that you pulled out that maybe I didn't cover?
What I really like about it is he was telling the client story. You know, and again, my goal with people and just it's just in part that can be very simple. This is really a simplified process that anyone can do, and it's a beginning and a middle. It's a middle and the end. So in the beginning of the story, he's telling here's what he set it up for us. Here's the situation. Here's what's about to happen. Here's what's going on. Middle of the story, here's the hero's journey. Here's the struggle. Here's the road bumps we hit. We had to go through. Here was how the relationship was being built along the way. And then there's the end, and then there's the resolution as we got them into the house of what they wanted. We had success. We solved the problem. Every single testimonial and case study is just simply that story when it's delivered. And I would say the case study, which is kind of what was going on here, when you're telling the story of a customer or client, great opportunity to tell that journey. And you'll find these principles in Hollywood. You'll find these principles, I believe, in story brand. It is whenever you get stuck, like, what the heck do I say on camera? What am I supposed to do? What can I create that's going to help move my business forward and attract more customers? Just tell somebody's story and tell it with a beginning, a middle, and the end, and you are off to the races.
Yeah. Mark Sharp, I'm thinking about you. Obviously you help out a ton of couples. I bet you just have a treasure trove of stories.
Yep, there's a lot of stories, and I use stories of some couples and working with other couples. So why not put them out there for the public? There's a lot of good stories that can be helpful there.
I can imagine a lot of people are resistant, to, all right, do I really want to work with a therapist? Like, can he really help me? Like, our
Right.
problems are so unique, Dr. Sharp. Like, we can't possibly have help. Like,
Right.
how do you use stories to disarm people who might think, oh, we're beyond help?
Well, most stories that I hear from people who think I can't help them, I have a story of somebody who has at least some commonalities with them already that I have helped. And so, I mean, people don't want to hear it, but the reality is most people's stories aren't that unique.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's pretty
That's it.
key.
It goes back to what I think it was Perry or Dan Kennedy says, well, my business is different. And
Yeah.
Here Mark is saying, well, my relationship is different. When the message that in one of our processes that we do is you've got to let people know they're not alone.
Right.
And that's all. And that's what your storytelling does. That's what Perry and Dan, they chuckle about it. No, your business isn't different. It's not different at all. No, your relationship problems are not unique just to you. There's millions of people who have these issues. Not to minimize your experience, but we can help. It's okay. You're going to be all right. You're not alone.
Well, there's an interesting thing. Everybody wants to think they're totally unique when everything's going great, and everybody's afraid they're totally unique when everything's going wrong.
That's interesting. That's profound.
And that's pretty applicable to a lot of people's businesses, right? That's so key. Now, Kelly, as you're doing work with this new project with the Straw Bale Garden Club, how are you using stories to help get the word out?
We recorded, we have some mission points, that are about the value of the experience being in your garden, whatever. So we recorded Joel talking about what those mean to him and, his vision for the humanitarian angle and all of that stuff. So, connecting his personality and his character to what people actually get doing this technique. So it's not the tangible, but it's this other intangible dimension, right? So yeah.
Right.
So and I've had him do some childhood stories about growing up on the farm and what that was like and stuff too. So
Have you involved people that have actually created these gardens and had success? Have you done a lot of that?
Yeah, we did a couple of feature garden segments where we went out and he met them and they talked together in their garden. So yeah, on-site testimonial interview type of deals. We've done some of those as well. And I'm definitely thinking about more ways to even just via Zoom, right, to have conversations with folks and build those into little, feature gardener kind of segments without, just backing up with their still photos, right? So I don't have to get to them. We can make it work without that distance variable being a problem.
Well, what you're selling is a result, right? There's a little bit of an artistic component to it, like what does it look like, right? And then what is the garden producing? So you've got kind of two angles that you could hit with that, right? It's like people want to know, like, all right, how did they set it up? All right, how did they fit it in a tight area? Like there's so many angles you could have, and like, oh, okay, I see how they did that, and then, oh, look at what my garden has actually produced. You're in the
Yeah.
harvest season now, so you could be getting a lot of stories from like, what are
Mhm.
they actually pulling out of the garden and how delicious and things like that, right?
Yeah. Plus like I said, this other nuance of like, when I'm just out in the garden, it's like I just feel good. Like I'm not in my electronics, like the breeze and the sun and my kid comes out with me. So there's all of this other like less mechanical, less nuts and bolts benefits that we can have people convey.
Cool. Kelly and Mark, I don't know. I'd love to hear from you. I know Mark Riffy's on. Mark, I think you're registered for our next workshop too. I know Beth is always coming on. She's got her thing, like she's waiting for her thing. But Mark, are you doing anything? Mark Riffy, are you doing anything in regards to video right now with your stuff?
Not yet. That's one of the reasons why I'm signed up for the workshop.
Awesome, awesome.
Fantastic.
Well, are you gonna be at Roundtable next week?
Yep.
Cool. Looking forward to sharing a bite to eat with you again. It'd be good to see you.
Cool. Yeah, it sounds great.
Cool. And then we have 3 Marks on this call. We're kind of rich with Marks today. I think the other Mark, aren't the other Mark who's hidden right now. I think you were doing the comedy stuff. I'd love to hear if you've got any updates. Was that you, Mark? Unmute. There you go.
No, I'm not into comedy. Actually, I'm new
Oh,
into
okay.
yes, I'm new into video marketing thing.
Okay.
So I'm just here to learn
Oh,
because
cool.
recently I've been reading your book, The
Okay.
Ultimate Guide to Facebook Ad. Yeah. So
Awesome.
yeah,
There was
so
another
I'm just
Mark.
here
So
to
we have
learn.
another Mark that was on last month. I'll have to look it up. That is doing some video marketing for Zoom comedy for corporations. So sorry if I got
Oh,
you
oh,
mixed up, but welcome. Good to
no.
have you on the call, Mark.
Oh man, thank you.
All right. And Kellyanne, I don't remember if we had a conversation recently. I don't know if you're there. I'd love to hear if you're there, what you're working on.
Kelly Ann, my
There she
friend.
is.
How are you,
Hi.
Kelly?
Oh, so Brandon and Kelly
Oh,
know each other.
my
That's how
gosh,
she's
Kelly and I
connected.
have hung out. It's been a couple of years, but yeah.
Yeah. I'm reminiscing about our first meeting, Brandon and I, and he was telling me about what he was doing and all, everything that you guys are talking about now, it's like all coming back to me and there's a little fire getting lit up within me. I do a lot of video as far as like lives on Facebook or even in my courses with my clients and in some groups. But as far as telling stories, that's what I'm like really picking up today in the conversation about telling stories. I mean, that's what I'm getting from what you guys are sharing is about how,
Yes.
like, how can I tell more stories about the successes of my clients? Because to me, I feel like it's a little intimate too. So that's what I'm, yeah.
What's your market,
Yes.
Kelly?
My market is entrepreneurs, artists, but more in the line of those that are intuitive, psychic, empathic, that, have this amazing gift within them that, just needs to be brought out. And what's really underneath that are limiting beliefs and programming and conditioning that needs to be healed. So there's a balance of, and because of my intuition, I can identify very precisely what is going on inside your operating system. But there's a balance of like pulling that out, but having the direction be more of creation versus like this like hamster wheel of healing.
Very cool.
Interesting.
I guess in your case you'd want to be careful, but I imagine there'd be clients that would want to sing your praises, right? That have the vulnerability to like tell their story about how you help them break through, because you're all about breakthroughs, right?
I'm all about breakthroughs. And the thing too with me is like, as I'm listening to you guys is like, all right, so I have my market. So it's, those sensitives and empaths and whatnot, intuitives and psychics and artists, but the range of what happens with them is so big, because it could be inner emotional and energetic stuff. But I worked with a woman 2 weeks ago where so I'm really good with physical stuff. She had this tumor come back on her hip after she had surgery. And after her session, she had another MRI and it shrank.
Hmm.
And it's
Wow.
like, hasn't shrunk in years. So like I do some pretty cool, phenomenal things, but it's like wide range. So that's
Right.
where I kind of get stuck in, how do I communicate? Because if somebody's looking for, if they've got health issues, it's going to affect, like it's definitely affecting her ability to be the healer that she is out in the world. So.
I love it. I think, Kelly and I swim in some of the same circles in the types of retreats and things we go to. And the reason why people come is the stories. There's no sales pitch. There's no, it's you tell the stories of information and connection and friendships made and big shifts and breakthroughs for entrepreneurs and people are gonna be hooked all day long. That's why, again, just go back to is if you ever wonder, God, what do I say? I got this camera in front of me, and just start talking about your clients. Start talking about your favorite stories around your clients.
Mm-hmm.
And you will have no end to wonderful content that will attract people that you want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's where the vulnerability, it feels so secret and sacred to me. So I feel like if I'm sharing too much, there's definitely clients, I'll ask, I've been working with some of them for years, and I'll be like, hey, can I share this? They'll be like, share anything, share it all. I don't care. Like, share it all.
Love it.
Yeah. But I still ask every time.
Sure. We mean whatever's comfortable. There's no pressure, but so there's, with Feedstories, there's a few things we like to do. There's the testimonial, which we get a customer on camera who's willing to, and we ask them about 5 to 7 questions about their story. And that's a fantastic way to, again, attract people to their business. There's the case study where now we take that footage and we add it to your footage where you tell the story. So now we go back and forth between the client telling their story and you telling your story of helping the client. There's a case study. And if it's just you telling a story, that's fine as well. Still going to get played. The common denominators is it's all just a story. And a story of transformation, what is what people want. They want to transform a problem into a solution. They want to transform healthy. Pick one. Pick any polarity.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, Kelly. Yeah, one of the most famous healers, Jesus, sometimes would tell people, "Don't tell anybody what I just did," right?
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
sometimes be like, "Go tell everybody." So he had that intuitive sense when he worked with his client, and I think you have that same intuitive sense where it's like, this is one we're not going to tell anybody about, but you could go like, this is something more people need to know about. And certainly you're not going to put a video together going, oh, well, if you work with me, I'll shrink tumors. No, that's very personal. You're not going to ever make that claim.
Right.
But you can talk in generalities about how blockages have physical manifestations, right? And in order for you to bring your gift to the world, you have to remove those things that are blocking you. And sometimes there's physical the mental, emotional, physical manifestations and how you deal with that. And you're going to turn off enough people, like if it's not into it, they're going to go away. But there's so many people that are connected to that type of language, and so if they are intuitive, if they're empaths, if they are, deeply spiritual, they're going to go, okay, like here's somebody that can understand things, and I've got this thing in my way, and here's a litany of stories from Kelly Ann, who's like, she helps these individuals. So, I mean, you don't have to make a lot of claims. You are really in the proof gathering business. In fact, everybody's in the proof gathering business. Like, you should be in the habit of collecting proof about your success stories. So you don't have to continually brag about yourself. You just have a track record of helping people. And those stories are what is what's going to attract people in. You know, Mark Sharp can just talk about a litany of couples that he's helped over the years, and he can also talk about couples that didn't work, so that the wrong couple doesn't end up working with him. It's as much about saying, we were very vulnerable today and talked about a client that didn't work for us. That's also useful to you guys. Is like, hey, if you're this type of person, don't even bother calling us because we can't help you. Until you reach this particular point, that's where we're going to be useful. So stories are really good at just framing, like, what are we not good at? What are we very good at? And it really helping people self-identify. And it's a much better way it's a much easier way to sell, especially for somebody who's like,
Absolutely.
you know, Brandon and I really enjoy serving. We don't like selling at all. So this is why we do workshops. This
Yeah,
is why we do things like
absolutely.
this. We much rather serve and let the stories of those who we work with, kind of speak for themselves. Right, Brandon?
Yeah, and I think this workshop we just did is, we spent a lot of time on the content and the slides, and we're kind of dispelling one of the biggest myths and probably one of the biggest annoyances Bob and I has ever had in the internet marketing and generally marketing community, is that the goal is to manipulate someone to a sale. And we certainly have been manipulated. Everyone here has probably been burned some way or another. They were manipulated into a sale that something they really didn't need, or it didn't solve the problem that they were told it solved. And so one of the myths that we busted was just simply that you're not in control of the sale. The customer is. And when you kind of accept that, it takes the pressure off you to have to become this manipulator, did I get the timing right? And when I asked for the close, did I do all that right? And it's like, well, if you resonate with people, if you communicate clearly that you can solve a problem, if you're honest about what you can do and can't do, and you can tell stories of success around your favorite customers, it's up to them. You've given them all the tools they need to make a decision about you, whether or not they're going to take a step towards you, or maybe this isn't the right fit. That's kind of, if there's one statement, if there's one kind of philosophy about what we do, that's it. The videos we create and help you create is just to simply give someone all the information in the order and the sequence which they make decisions, and they make their decision. And then you make it really easy for them to connect with you.
Yep.
That's it. There's no false scarcity. There's no, we've all seen it. There's no false this or that. There's no lying about it. It's like, here it is. That's what makes this fun, and what makes it super comfortable to create video. There's no pressure. The pressure's off for you to try to be a used car salesman.
Absolutely. Well, that's a good final thought. Want to be respectful of everybody's time. We appreciate you. Mark, best wishes on your surgery. I know that's coming up. Todd, Mark, we'll see you next week at Roundtable, and we'll see everybody else very, very soon. All right?
Thanks,
Have a great
everybody.
rest of your
Thank
day, rest of your
you.
week.
Thanks.
All right.
All
See you
right.
soon.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.